You travel for work as a speaker and strategist, working in faith, politics, and the American public life. Then a global pandemic hits. Your travel is grounded, and you're stuck wondering, how can policy and politics give us hope now and in the future? This is Sucker Punched. My guest today is Michael Ware. Welcome to Sucker Punched.
So good to be with you. Glad to be here.
So we're going to jump right in, and I am wondering, how has the development and spread of COVID-19 affected you?
We've been sheltering in place we probably started sheltering in place maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks before the order came down. My wife, her father is a biologist. Her grandfather is a chemist. So a strong line of medical friendly lineage there. And so my wife has been on this. Melissa's been on this from the jump, and so we've been sheltering in place for a while. The biggest thing was my March and April, and right. So it's just important. This has not affected us in a profound way, and so I just want to say that. I'm aware that this has not affected us as it's affected other folks. But how it's affected us is I was supposed to be out of town for much of March and April. And a bunch of that travel got pulled down. And what it's ended up being is time with my daughter Saoirse that I wouldn't have had. And so my daughter's going to be 18 months this month. And so I've just been trying to enjoy that, make use of that time, which we didn't, which is a bit of grace. We didn't expect to have that. And because so much short-term work, speaking engagements, other projects have been sort of put on hold or canceled altogether, I've been trying to use this time to focus on long-term things that I had mapped out to take care of over the next, 6 months. But now, I find I have a little bit of space to try and address them now in the hopes that, they bear fruit down the road.
Sure.
But I haven't had family members who have been infected. Obviously, I have friends who have been affected, directly by the virus. But yeah.
You mentioned that your wife, you guys started sheltering in place before other people did. And so what was that like, kind of in your mind, heart, and body, to realize that you were aware of what was coming before most people, or kind of saw the writing on the wall a little bit more?
Well, I'll be honest. Melissa is the kind of person who is handing me in normal circumstances is handing me hand sanitizer on the airplane, and I'm rolling my eyes and that kind of thing. And so it took me. I was like, okay, I have no problem staying at home. We're both kind of hermits. So in the beginning, it was just like, okay, I'll humor Melissa on this. And then it got more and more real. And I was like, oh gosh, she, not only is she onto something this time, but she's probably been onto something all the time.
Every time.
Yeah, every time. And so, so that was, I'll tell you the weirdest thing. The weirdest experience I had was I had to go to Atlanta for, and this is just, jogging my memory. I had to go to Atlanta, um, for work, and it was like just when people were starting to take this really seriously. But I was like, Melissa, I have to do this work trip. I'm obligated. I'm on the hook for this. I can't back out. And I was like, who knows what happens from this point? I'm not sure. We want to cancel this work trip. I got to the airport, and Melissa was not thrilled. I got to the airport, get through security, and there's a moment as I'm walking and start realizing, I'm kind of in a Stephen King movie here. Like this is not a good situation. I texted my wife like, I should not be here, and that was a weird. It was a
Mm.
weird trip to be in, that like twilight period where, where and McKay Coppins at the Atlantic wrote an article. He had to go on a work trip. He's a reporter. He had to go on a reporting trip recently, and he wrote an article about his experience on the plane. And that he brings out this element of sort of human suspicion. Basically, the point of his article is, even if sheltering in place orders are lifted, even if restaurants are open, there will be there has to be trust between people that the government can't order. There has to be
Yeah.
a sense of comfort with other people. That's obviously especially true air travel, but also in at the grocery store. And I really felt that on that was when it really like came home, when I was there and saw how other people were reacting, and also felt unsafe myself. It was like, man, I just gotta get home.
Yeah. Sure.
My wife was very proud of all of the Clorox wipes I was using that usually I'd scoff at. So yeah.
So you live in Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
which I can imagine, and even just from talking to other friends who live there, that what is the word I'm looking for? I guess the tenor of things is probably a little different,
Yeah.
because that's the seat of the federal government, and you don't have a governor. And so, there's kind of this different dynamic than everyone else is experiencing. And with your background in government, what are some of your fears, both personally and a little bit on a grander scale?
Yeah.
Or what is Melissa telling you to be afraid of?
No. This has been a transformative time for me. I'm taking these things pretty seriously these days. A few things. I am concerned, both personally and from a policy level, about the ramifications of this. And this is not especially insightful, but the ramifications of this being an ongoing, iterative a thing that we're just not able to wrap our arms around, and not able to prevent sort of these mini epidemics, for years in the future. Like I said before, there was that. Oh, our family, we're used to sort of being home. For the first few weeks, it feels like okay, we could handle this, but as you get months in, it's wow, my daughter, whose development largely relies on social interaction, has not seen another baby in 6 weeks. Like
Sure.
My a lot of my work revolves around getting people together, and doing training and education and just talking to people at events, and that's not happening. And then, and obviously, there are sectors of the economy that are, it's not a slice. It's the whole point is human interaction.
Yeah.
And so I'm worried about um, the economic costs of this. I'm worried about a nation enduring two profound economic recessions within almost a decade of each other.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about uh, mental health issues in this country, that we already don't necessarily have the infrastructure or, frankly, the culture to deal with mental health issues well.
Yep.
And now that we're uh, in this in this season and these circumstances, I'm worried about what the mental health sort of ramifications are going to be. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a bit to be concerned about. I'm the ever present concern when you're talking about politics and policy concerns is that uh, the most vulnerable will be sacrificed, that they'll be thrown under the bus
Mhm.
in order for other folks to get back to normalcy as quickly as possible. But we're just going to have to come to terms with the fact that we may be entering a period where normalcy is not possible or healthy in
Yeah.
many ways. So yeah.
So what do you think compassion looks like with those different issues of there there being disproportionate impacts on people whose health is more vulnerable, people whose mental health is more vulnerable, especially from on a personal level, but also that on that policy level. What does it mean to be compassionate?
Yeah, I mean, and this is where I've been
I know there's no
encouraged.
simple answer to that question.
Yeah, this is where I've been encouraged a a bit on the personal level. Um, Look, I know there are like these protests, happening in some states. It's more active than others.
Mhm.
My hometown of Buffalo has been one of the places where these protests have been taking place, of folks wanting to reopen things now that don't think that this is too serious. But it's really important to recognize that those are vast outliers. At, in an era that has been defined by distrust, cynicism about institutions and authority, it is interesting that we have basically 80% support for stay-at-home orders. We
Mhm.
have we have majorities of folks who are concerned that the stay-at-home order will be lifted too soon and the health consequences of that. And so, you, you know, the, the, there's the concern that there's not that this sense of solidarity will be short-lived, that it won't be lasting, but there's also the opportunity that maybe this reminds us that we really are all tied together. That
Mhm.
the people that we thought that we could uh, ignore, the people that we thought that we just could not see how what happened to them and what they did had any bearing on us, that's now been proven false. That sort of a radical individualism has proven insufficient for this time, and I think that's a real possibility. And so, I think part of compassion means it is a lot of what we see happening. I think people are feeling the ways that this is pressing on them, and that's leading them to think about how it might be pressing in on others. And so we see people reaching out, uh, reaching out to family members, reaching out to people in their communities that they know may not have anyone reaching out to them. This is why the church can be so important, and we might, this might be a time where we go back to recognizing the value of the local church, particularly in communities with folks who are vulnerable, folks that might be estranged from society and community in other ways. Find community at church, and it can be the pastor who's the only person who has tabs on someone who is suffering, who has a health issue, who is lonely, and that kind of attention and care that we pay to one another is vital. On the policy level, I mean, look, we and there has been some cause for optimism. The CARES Act, the third sort of federal legislative package addressing coronavirus, did have significant unemployment benefit package. It did have a significant few strings attached aid that was just about getting money out to folks. Now, as that money has been distributed through the Paycheck Protection Program, we've learned what should not be a surprise, but that we need to address what we need to address proactively. I mean, part of compassion is not expecting things that have happened in the past to just fix themselves. And so we've seen racial disparities. We've seen all sorts of disparities with how the money has gone out. But my main point here is that actually, as I look around, I see a sense of solidarity that I was doubtful could be cultivated. It is. I mean, I was in the White House when we were working on the stimulus package in 2009, and there was, that was a dogfight, and that was in a moment of apparent economic catastrophe for the country. That frankly we had. The crisis started in 2007, and so we had months and months and months to sort of gear up for what it would take to get the economy back on track. But partisanship, sort of short-term political games, sort of prevented that from almost prevented that from moving forward. But to see something like the CARES Act pass in a bipartisan way shows again a level of solidarity and an ability to perhaps break through some of the tribalism that we've seen in our politics.
That's a really interesting observation. And I think about how, we're in a generation that has experienced 9/11 and 2 recessions. And, we've had loads of national trauma from adolescence on. And I think we've kind of gotten in this pattern of like when a trauma happens, like we're going to band together and then everybody kind of forgets, right? Yeah. Like there's this pattern where it's not lasting. But what I hear you saying is maybe there is a chance this time that the compassion sticks, that it kind of shifts away from the individualism and more towards more compassion in our culture.
Yeah, and look, that's not to be naive. I mean, but I wrote a book on hope, and hope is about,
which is a fantastic book, and everyone should read it. By the way,
thank you. But as I really appreciate that, but as you know, that hope is about possibility and openness to possibility. And yeah, sometimes hope will make you look foolish, but hope is about keeping that window open. That, yeah, keeping it open, even just a sliver, as much as you can, to hold out the possibility that we can get it right, that we can move in a positive direction. And so yeah, I mean, right, so like some of the trend lines are not going well on some of these questions, but I am seeing glimmers within this crisis that might be building blocks for the future.
That's really encouraging. What do you think resilience and endurance can look like, and how would you encourage people to pursue those things?
Yeah, I think, and right, and different people react to things in different ways, so there aren't really great generalizations on questions like this. But just from my perspective, um, I see people taking on burdens that aren't necessarily theirs to take on, and so like part of it is just recognizing who you are and your place in the world and in community, and not trying to take on responsibility for things that are not your responsibility. Uh, so I think that would be the first thing. The second thing is recognizing where you need help and when you need it, and being willing to ask for it. I have some friends in my life that, like, I'm not a big texter. I'm not a big sort of a small talk or sort of like ongoing. Uh, but I have some friends in my life who we've just been talking a lot more. I don't even know if it's about us getting closer. I think it's just a mutual understanding that that this is a season for being in closer contact, for supporting one another uh, emotionally, and understanding that we need that's. I think people often, when we talk about sort of resiliency and endurance, I think the sort of sense people have is that we're talking about what we can do on our own before we ask for help. But part of resiliency, part of endurance is knowing and learning what kind of help you're going to need along the way, and being willing to ask for it, and being willing to build structures around uh, yourself and your time and for your family that will support you for that journey. So for the first, like I said, for the first couple of weeks like this, of being, shut in, you take it one way, and you think, well, uh, this is just maybe for a little season, maybe for a couple of weeks, and my schedule was a mess, my sleep schedule was a mess. Uh, as you get the sense that this is going to have a longer time horizon, well, part of what you need to do is, and part of what I've tried to do and what I'm doing now is building some structure that will sustain me and my family for the long haul. And so that's I think a key piece of getting through, like it's getting to the time where we need to come to terms with reality, come to terms with what is happening, uh, and and think about what changes are necessary in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in the lives of our family, and our churches, and the institutions and communities that we're a part of.
Michael Ware serves as chief strategist and a member of the executive team for the AND campaign. He is a leading expert, speaker, and strategist at the intersection of faith, politics, and the American public life. Michael is the author of Reclaiming Hope: Lessons Learned in the Obama White House about the Future of Faith in America. You can find Michael online on Twitter at Michael R. Ware, his newsletter, reclaiminghope.substack.com, his website, michaelware.com, and find the AND campaign's new book, Compassion and Conviction, out July 21st at your local bookstore. You can find me online on my website, beckylmccoy.com, or on social media at beckylmccoy. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Rate and review Sucker Punched wherever you listen to podcasts, and be sure to hit that subscribe button. Let's continue to be resilient together.